"That military identification does not belong to you," Officer Daniel Price said, holding the card between two fingers as if it were something stolen. Angela Mercer stood beside the open trunk of her mother's sedan, one hand resting on a small wooden box filled with old service medals. The afternoon sun reflected from the windows of the Veterans Center behind her, warm and ordinary, but the officer's voice had changed the air around them. A few people near the entrance slowed their steps. Angela did not blink. She was 52 years old, dressed in a charcoal coat over a plain cream blouse, with no uniform, no ribbons, and no visible sign of rank. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled neatly away from her face. Nothing about her appearance matched the picture Officer Price had already formed in his mind. "Verify it properly," she said. Price looked at the card again, then at her. His expression hardened. "This says you are a general." "That is correct." A short laugh escaped him. Not loud. Just dismissive enough for everyone nearby to hear. Angela's mother, Evelyn Mercer, waited several feet away beside her walking cane, watching from the passenger door. She had spent 24 years as an army nurse and knew the sound of disrespect disguised as procedure. "My daughter gave you valid identification," Evelyn said. Price raised one hand without looking at her. "Ma'am, stay by the vehicle." Angela felt something cold settle beneath her ribs, but her posture remained still. She had stood inside command centers during hurricanes, coordinated medical flights across 3 states, and briefed officials who measured decisions in thousands of lives. Yet here, outside a quiet veterans center in Virginia, none of that mattered because a stranger had decided her face did not belong beside the title printed on the card. Price touched the radio on his shoulder. "I need another unit at the north entrance. Possible fraudulent military credentials." The words drew more attention. A retired Marine near the sidewalk stopped completely. A young volunteer carrying grocery bags stared at Angela, then at the card in the officer's hand. Angela looked toward the camera mounted on Price's chest. A small green light showed that it was recording. "Do not turn that off," she said. Price's eyes narrowed. "Are you giving me instructions?" "I am asking you to preserve the record." He stepped closer to the trunk and looked inside. The wooden box held Evelyn's medals, several folded letters, and a photograph of her in an Army hospital uniform from 1978. Beside it sat Angela's black security case, locked and tagged for official transport. Price pointed toward it. "What is in the case?" "Government material." "Open it." "I cannot authorize you to inspect it." The second patrol car entered the parking lot before he answered. Sergeant Thomas Keller stepped out, adjusting his belt as he approached. Price handed him the identification card and spoke quietly, but not quietly enough. "She claims this is hers." Keller studied Angela for less than 3 seconds. "A general," he said. His tone carried the same disbelief. Angela watched him turn the card over without scanning it, calling anyone, or asking a single question that might lead to the truth. He had already reached the conclusion he preferred. "Mrs. Mercer," Keller said, "you need to come with us while we verify your identity." "You can verify it here." "That is not how this works." Angela glanced at Evelyn. Her mother's fingers tightened around the cane, but Angela gave her a small nod, the same silent reassurance she had offered frightened soldiers before difficult missions. Then she looked back at the 2 officers. "You have a lawful way to confirm who I am," she said. "Use it." Keller returned the card to Price. "Place her in the vehicle." Angela did not resist. As the officers guided her away from her mother, the black security case remained in the open trunk beneath the sunlight. Deep inside it, an encrypted device registered that its authorized carrier was moving away without it. A silent clock had just started. The patrol car door closed behind Angela with a firm mechanical click, cutting off the sound of Evelyn calling her name from the parking lot. Through the rain-speckled window, Angela watched her mother stand beside the sedan, one hand gripping the cane and the other resting on the open trunk. The wooden box of medals remained where Angela had left it. Beside it, the black security case sat beneath the afternoon light, still locked, still silent to anyone who did not know what it contained. Officer Price took the driver's seat. Sergeant Keller sat beside him and placed Angela's identification card on the center console as though it were evidence in a case already decided. Neither man spoke for the first mile. The city moved past in familiar pieces: a gas station, a grocery store, a row of brick apartments, the elementary school where Angela had once waited for Evelyn after late hospital shifts. She had grown up less than 3 miles from the precinct. Back then, the neighborhood had been smaller, poorer, and held together by people who knew which families needed groceries and which children needed rides home. Angela had learned discipline at her mother's kitchen table long before she learned it in uniform. Evelyn had taught her to fold towels with clean edges, finish every task she started, and never confuse respect with fear. Angela carried those lessons through the United States Military Academy, through deployments, emergency operations, and 30 years of service. She had coordinated relief convoys after hurricanes, rebuilt supply routes after floods, and once remained awake for 41 hours while hospitals across 3 states waited for generators and medicine. Yet that morning, none of those accomplishments had mattered to her. She had come home to take Evelyn to a medical appointment and help return a box of donated service memorabilia to the Veterans Center. She wore civilian clothes because she wanted to be a daughter, not a general. Her secure briefing case contained an assessment she was scheduled to present during an 8 o'clock Pentagon conference. The meeting concerned military logistics, transportation readiness, and emergency coordination. It was important, but Evelyn had been more important. Angela had planned to drive her home, make dinner, and join the conference from a protected room at a nearby federal facility. Now the clock on the dashboard read 4:27. Price glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You are very calm for someone carrying fake credentials." Angela met his reflection. Calm is not evidence of guilt. Neither is confidence evidence of rank. Correct. Her answer seemed to bother him more than an argument would have. Keller turned halfway in his seat. "Who printed the card?" "The Department of Defense issued it." That was not the question. It was the answer. He studied her face, searching for nervousness. Angela gave him only patience. She understood interrogation tactics. Silence created pressure only when the person inside it doubted the truth. Keller picked up the identification card again. "Deputy Commander of United States Joint Logistics Command," he read. "That is what you expect us to believe. You do not have to believe it. You have to verify it." Price tapped the steering wheel. "You keep saying that like we are doing something wrong." Angela looked out at the passing storefronts. "You have not scanned the card. You have not contacted the military liaison office. You have not called the number printed on the reverse. You decided first and called it procedure afterward." The car grew quiet. Keller turned forward again. At the Veterans Center, Evelyn had already called the number written inside Angela's emergency folder. A duty officer answered on the second ring. At the same time, the black security case registered that its authorized carrier had moved beyond the permitted distance. The signal did not contact the police. It moved through a protected federal channel to a monitoring desk outside Washington. A yellow notice appeared beside Angela Mercer's name. "Carrier separated from secured material. Identity confirmation pending." Angela felt the patrol car turn toward the precinct. She looked at the clock again. 3 hours and 33 minutes remained before the Pentagon expected her voice. The officers believed they were taking an unknown woman somewhere they controlled. They did not know the first alert had already reached people who knew exactly who she was. The patrol car passed beneath the precinct's concrete overhang at 4:41, and Angela watched the building rise beyond the rain-streaked glass. It was a low brick structure with narrow windows, a faded flag, and a row of marked vehicles parked beneath cold security lights. Nothing about it looked threatening. That was what made places like this dangerous when procedure became habit and habit replaced thought. Price opened the rear door and motioned for her to step out. Keller carried her identification card in one hand, still unscanned. Inside, the air smelled of floor cleaner, paper, and old coffee. A television near the front desk played a weather report without sound. 2 officers looked up as Angela entered, then glanced at Price as if waiting for him to explain what kind of problem she was. "Possible possession of fraudulent military identification," Price said. "Possible restricted government material at the scene." The desk officer looked from Angela to the card. "Did the military liaison confirm it?" Price did not answer immediately. Keller stepped in. "We are handling verification." The officer nodded and opened an intake form. Angela noticed the sequence because she had spent her career watching systems under stress. One person assumed another had checked. A second person accepted the assumption. Within minutes, uncertainty became an official record. A door opened behind the desk, and Captain Laura Bennett walked into the lobby. She wore a dark uniform with captain's bars and carried herself with the polished confidence of someone accustomed to resolving problems before they reached her office. Keller handed her the identification card. Bennett read the front, then looked at Angela. "You are claiming this rank?" "I am not claiming it," Angela said. "I hold it." Bennett's expression remained neutral, but her eyes moved over Angela's civilian coat, simple shoes, and gray-streaked hair. "Why are you not in uniform?" "Because I was taking my mother to an appointment." "Where is your command staff?" "Not every general travels with an escort." Price gave a faint smile near the booking desk. Bennett turned the card over. The verification number was printed clearly on the back. Her thumb passed over it, but she did not call. "We have seen sophisticated counterfeit credentials before," she said. Angela held her gaze. "Then you should know the correct way to check one." Bennett handed the card back to Keller. "Place her in interview 1 until we verify the circumstances." A younger officer standing nearby shifted her weight. Her nameplate read Megan Cole. "Captain, I can contact the regional military liaison," she offered. Keller looked toward her. "We do not need half the federal government involved in a routine identity issue." Megan hesitated. "The card has a Defense Department verification line." "And Sergeant Keller said he is handling it," Bennett replied. Megan lowered her eyes, but Angela saw the concern remain. Interview 1 was a narrow room with beige walls, a metal table, and a camera mounted near the ceiling. Price placed Angela's identification card and a blank form in front of her. Keller sat opposite. Bennett remained near the door. "Write down your full name, current address, employer, and the name of the person who manufactured the card," Keller said. Angela looked at the form. "My name and address are already in your system. My employer is the United States Department of Defense. The card was issued through an authorized federal credentialing office." Price leaned against the wall. "That answer is not helping you." "It is the only truthful answer." Keller pushed a second document across the table. This one stated that Angela had presented credentials she could not independently verify and had agreed to surrender them voluntarily. "Sign this while we sort it out," he said. Angela read every line. Then she placed the paper back on the table. "No," Bennett folded her arms. "Refusing may delay your release. Signing a false statement would delay the truth." The camera above them glowed red. Angela looked at it, then at each officer in turn. "You have the number. You have the card. You have my full identity. What you do not have is a reason not to verify me." No one answered. Outside the room, Megan returned to the front desk and quietly copied the verification number onto a yellow note. In Washington, the first security alert beside Angela's name changed from yellow to orange. Authorized carrier still separated. Command contact unsuccessful. At the precinct, Keller reached for the camera control panel beside the door. Angela watched his hand move toward it and understood that the next decision would reveal more than any identification card ever could. Keller pressed the control button, and the red light beneath the camera disappeared. The faint hum of the recording system stopped with it. Angela kept her eyes on his hand. Price shifted near the wall, while Captain Bennett remained beside the door with her arms folded, saying nothing. The room felt smaller without the camera, but Angela's posture did not change. "Why did you turn it off?" she asked. Keller returned to his chair. Technical pause. "There was no technical problem. You are not in a position to question station operations." Angela looked at the unsigned statement lying between them. "You are asking me to accept a false account in a room you just removed from the record. That makes my position very clear." Price stepped closer to the table. "You keep talking like you are in command here." "I am talking like a citizen who understands procedure." Bennett's expression tightened. "If you truly are who you claim to be, call someone who can confirm it." Angela glanced at the wall clock. It was 4:58. She could have recited 3 numbers from memory. Her executive officer would have answered before the first ring ended. Colonel Nathan Reed could have reached the Pentagon duty desk within seconds. One call would have changed every face in the room. But Angela did not reach for the telephone. "You already have an official verification number," she said. "Use it." Keller leaned back. Most people in your situation would be eager to clear this up. Most people should not need a powerful friend to make the truth acceptable. Bennett looked toward Price, then back at Angela. "This is not about powerful friends. This is about establishing identity. Then establish it through the system designed for that purpose." The silence that followed was not confusion. It was resistance. Angela had seen it in command meetings when an inconvenient fact threatened an easy decision. People did not always reject the truth because it was unclear. Sometimes they rejected it because accepting it required admitting what they had already done. Keller pushed the statement closer. "Sign that you presented an unverified credential. We release you while the investigation continues." Angela read the wording again. It described her identification as unverified because she had failed to provide a personal contact. It did not mention the federal number on the card, Megan's offer to call the liaison, or the fact that no one had attempted either method. "No," Angela said. Price exhaled sharply. "You are choosing to stay here. You are choosing not to verify me." Bennett uncrossed her arms. "General officers understand cooperation." Angela turned toward her. "General officers also understand accountability." The title hung in the room, spoken without pride or demand. Bennett's eyes flickered, but Keller reached for a blank incident form. "Then give us the name of your commanding officer. My chain of command is not a substitute for your responsibility. You could end this with one telephone call." Angela's voice remained even. "If your process only works after someone powerful answers the telephone, then your process is broken." No one spoke. Outside the room, a printer began running. Megan sat at the front desk with the yellow note hidden beneath her keyboard. She had entered the number from Angela's card into a secure government verification portal available to law enforcement. The page took several seconds to load. Then a warning appeared across the screen. "Credential requires direct federal confirmation. Do not seize, alter, or duplicate. Contact authorized liaison immediately." Megan read it twice. Her pulse quickened. She reached for the telephone, but Keller opened the interview room door before she could dial. "Cole," he called, "bring me an evidence bag." Megan looked from him to the warning on her monitor. Inside interview 1, Angela watched Price lift her identification card from the table. The officers believed the next step would give them more control. Instead, it was about to move the matter beyond their station entirely. Megan entered interview 1 carrying a clear evidence bag, but her attention stayed on the warning still glowing on the monitor outside. Price reached for Angela's identification card. "Place it inside," Keller said. Megan did not move. "Sergeant, the federal portal says the credential requires direct confirmation and must not be seized, altered, or duplicated." Keller looked at her as though she had interrupted him over something trivial. "We are not altering it. It also says to contact an authorized liaison immediately." Bennett stepped toward the table. "Then contact one after the property is secured." Megan's eyes shifted to Angela. Angela saw the conflict there, the same conflict she had seen in young officers who knew an order was wrong but had not yet decided whether courage outweighed consequence. "Officer Cole," Angela said calmly, "read the warning exactly as it appears." Keller's jaw tightened. "She does not take instructions from you." Megan swallowed. "It says, credential requires direct federal confirmation. Do not seize, alter, or duplicate. Contact authorized liaison immediately." The room fell silent. Price still held the card between his fingers. Bennett looked at Keller, waiting for him to restore certainty. Instead, Keller reached for the evidence bag. "We are preserving it pending verification." He sealed the card inside and wrote the time across the label. Angela glanced at the wall clock. 5:12. The time he wrote was 5:23. "That time is incorrect," she said. Keller kept writing. "Clocks differ. The station clock, your watch, and the booking computer all show 5:12. Price gave her a hard look. You are paying attention to details that do not matter. Angela met his eyes. That is how records become lies. Bennett opened the door. Bring in the black case from the vehicle. Megan turned toward her. Captain, the case carries a federal security tag. Which is exactly why it must be secured. Not in local evidence storage, Angela said. Bennett looked back at her. You are not deciding that. The tag is deciding it. Read it before you touch the case. Keller gave Price a short nod. Price left the room. Angela listened to his footsteps cross the lobby and fade beyond the rear entrance. The rain had strengthened outside, tapping against the narrow windows with a steady metallic rhythm. In the Veterans Center parking lot, Evelyn stood beside the sedan while a duty officer from the Regional Military Support Office spoke with her. The black case remained in the trunk. Its indicator had changed from green to amber, signaling continued separation from its authorized carrier. When Price arrived, he showed Evelyn a property receipt and said the case had to accompany Angela. Evelyn did not argue. She only watched him lift it by the handle and carry it toward the patrol car. That belongs to the United States government, she said. Price paused. Then the government can collect it from us. By 5:31, the case sat on the evidence counter inside the precinct. Its dark surface reflected the fluorescent lights. Megan saw the red security seal near the lock and stopped several feet away. Do not open that, she said. Keller joined them. No one is opening it. Price placed a hand near the latch. Angela, watching through the interview room window, stood for the first time. Officer Price, she called, her voice carrying into the lobby. Step away from the case. He turned toward her. You do not give orders here. That is not an order. It is a warning. Bennett approached the counter. What happens if it is opened? The case will record unauthorized access and notify federal security. Keller looked at the seal, then at Angela. Another threat. A fact. He pointed toward the evidence shelf. Store it. Price lifted the case again and carried it toward the secure room. Megan remained beside the counter, staring at the verification warning on her screen. Then she opened a second terminal and entered Angela's identification number through the regional liaison directory. A new result appeared, this time with an emergency contact name. Colonel Nathan Reed. Pentagon Duty Coordination. Megan copied the number onto her palm before Keller could see it. Inside Interview 1, Bennett placed another statement before Angela. This version claimed the military identification and security case had been surrendered voluntarily. Angela read the first line and pushed it back. No, Bennett's voice hardened. You are making this unnecessarily difficult. Angela looked through the glass toward the evidence room, where the amber light on the black case had just turned red. No, she said quietly. You are. The wall clock reached 7:58, and the station seemed to breathe more slowly with every passing second. Angela sat alone in Interview 1 after Bennett and Keller stepped into the hallway to argue in voices too low for her to hear. The camera remained dark. Rain moved across the narrow window in silver lines, and the fluorescent light above her flickered once before settling into a steady hum. She rested both hands on her knees and straightened her back. For more than 3 decades, she had taught soldiers that panic made time feel smaller than it was. Breathe. Observe. Decide. The same discipline held her now. She was not worried about the title they refused to believe. She was thinking about the people who had sat in rooms like this without a secure case, without a federal credential, and without anyone in Washington expecting them to appear at 8 o'clock. Outside, Megan stood beside the records desk with Colonel Nathan Reed's number written across her palm. She had already checked the portal twice. The warning remained unchanged. Direct federal confirmation required. She looked toward Keller's office, where Bennett was speaking rapidly while Price paced beside the door. Then she glanced at the evidence room. Through its small reinforced window, the black case rested on a metal shelf, its indicator now glowing a steady red. Megan picked up the desk telephone and dialed the number before fear could change her mind. A duty operator answered. Pentagon Coordination Desk. Megan lowered her voice. My name is Officer Megan Cole. I need to verify a military credential and report the detention of a woman named Angela Mercer. There was a brief pause. Then the operator's tone changed. State your station, badge number, and current status of General Mercer. Megan's fingers tightened around the receiver. She is being held in interview 1. Her identification and security case have been placed in evidence. Do not move the case. Do not alter any recordings. Do not question her further. Remain on the line. Megan looked toward the dark camera above the interview room door. Some recording systems were turned off. The silence on the other end lasted less than a second, but it felt heavier than the entire building. Understood. Hold your position. At exactly 8 o'clock, Angela heard the secure telephone in Bennett's office begin to ring. Not the front desk line. Not a patrol extension. The dedicated emergency line used for federal coordination. Bennett stopped speaking. Keller turned toward the sound. Price froze near the doorway. The telephone rang again. No one moved. A third ring cut through the station. Bennett entered her office and answered. Captain Laura Bennett. Her posture changed almost immediately. The confidence left her shoulders first, then her face. Yes, Colonel. She is here. Keller stepped closer, trying to hear. Bennett turned away from him. No, sir, her identity has not been confirmed through our local process. A pause followed. Angela could not hear the voice on the telephone, but she saw Bennett's hand tighten around the receiver. Understood. Another pause. Yes, sir. Immediately. Bennett lowered the phone slowly. The station had gone silent around her. What did he say? Keller asked. Bennett looked at the dark interview room camera, then at the evidence shelf beyond the lobby. He said the Pentagon has been tracking her separation from the case since 4/27. Price stopped pacing. Who is she? Bennett faced him. She is exactly who she said she was. At the front desk, every computer monitor flashed with the same priority notice. Confirmed federal identity. Preserve all evidence. Suspend local questioning. Await authorized military liaison. Megan exhaled for the first time in several minutes. Through the glass, Angela watched officers turn toward interview 1. Their expressions no longer carried disbelief. They carried recognition, and beneath it, fear. Outside, the low sound of approaching engines rolled through the rain. No sirens. No urgency displayed for the public. Only a line of dark government vehicles entering the precinct lot with quiet precision. Angela looked at the clock. 8:02. The meeting had begun without her, but the truth had arrived exactly on time. The dark vehicles stopped beneath the precinct lights at 8:04. Their doors opened in near silence, and uniformed military officers stepped into the rain with the controlled speed of people who already knew where they were going. Colonel Nathan Reed entered first, wearing a dark service uniform beneath a long overcoat. 2 security officers followed him, along with a civilian Defense Department investigator carrying a sealed authorization packet. No one raised a voice. No one needed to. The authority in the room shifted the moment Reed crossed the threshold. Captain Bennett moved toward him. Colonel Reed, I can explain. He handed her a document before she finished. You will preserve every recording, intake form, property log, dispatch entry, and internal message connected to General Mercer's detention. Bennett accepted the packet with both hands. Keller stood several feet behind her, his face drained of color. Price remained near the evidence counter, looking toward interview 1. Reed's eyes followed his. Open the room. Bennett took out her keys. General Mercer was never formally booked. That does not change the fact that she was detained. The lock turned. Angela rose as the door opened, her posture unchanged from the moment she entered. Reed stopped at the threshold and stood at attention. General Mercer. His voice was respectful but restrained. Angela looked past him at the officers gathered in the lobby. Colonel. Your identity has been confirmed. The security case is intact, and your command has been notified. My mother. Safe. She is on her way here with a military family support officer. Angela nodded once. Only then did she step into the hallway. Every person in the station seemed to watch her differently now. The same coat. The same face. The same calm voice. Only their knowledge had changed. Bennett cleared her throat. General, on behalf of this department, I apologize for the misunderstanding. Angela stopped. It was not a misunderstanding. The words were quiet, but they carried through the lobby. A misunderstanding ends when facts are checked. Your officers were given the correct method and chose not to use it. Bennett lowered her eyes. Keller stepped forward. We believed the credential might be fraudulent. Reed turned toward him. The verification number was printed on the card. Keller said nothing. Megan remained behind the front desk, the inked telephone number still visible on her palm. Angela noticed her first. Officer Cole made the call. Reed nodded. She did. Angela looked at Megan. Thank you for following the procedure everyone else ignored. Megan's eyes filled with relief, but she kept her voice steady. I should have called sooner. You called before silence became complicity. Price finally spoke. I was responding to suspicious circumstances. Angela turned toward him. You saw a black woman holding a military identification card and decided the card was false before you verified a single fact. The sentence left no room for escape. Price looked toward Keller, but Keller would not meet his eyes. Reed signaled to the security officers, who opened the evidence room and documented the condition of the black case before removing it from the shelf. The red indicator remained steady. One investigator photographed the incorrect property label. Another collected the unsigned statements from interview 1. Bennett watched each step, understanding that the record would now include what had been omitted, altered, and turned off. Then the station's public address speaker clicked on. The dispatch supervisor's voice sounded across every office and hallway. All personnel report to the main lobby. By order of the station captain, stand by for formal identification of a senior United States military officer. Officers emerged from side rooms and corridors, uncertain and silent. Bennett faced the assembled station. Attention. Everyone straightened. Reed stepped beside Angela. General Angela Mercer, Deputy Commander of United States Joint Logistics Command. The effect was immediate. One by one, the officers came to attention. Bennett raised her hand in salute. Keller followed. Price hesitated for half a second. Before doing the same, Angela stood before them without satisfaction. Their salute did not erase the hours behind her. It only proved how quickly respect appeared once power became visible. She returned the salute with perfect precision, then lowered her hand. At ease, she said. No one relaxed. Angela let the silence remain for several seconds. The officers stood in formation beneath the fluorescent lights, hands lowered now but bodies still rigid. She looked from Bennett to Keller, then to Price. You are saluting the rank you recognize, she said. You ignored the person standing in front of you. No one answered. Reed remained beside her, holding the authorization packet. The Defense Department investigator opened a notebook and began recording the time. Angela turned toward Bennett. I want every camera file preserved, including the period before the systems were turned off. Bennett nodded. Yes, General. I want the original dispatch audio, the verification portal log, the property records, and every version of the statements placed in front of me. They will be provided. Angela looked toward the dark camera above interview 1. Not to me. To an independent investigative team. Keller shifted his weight. General, this department can conduct an internal review. Angela faced him. You were part of the decision. His mouth opened, but no words followed. Reed stepped forward. The Department of Defense Inspector General will coordinate with the State Attorney General and the Civilian Oversight Office. Local personnel connected to the detention will not control the review. The sentence moved through the room like a door closing. Price lowered his eyes. Bennett removed her radio from her shoulder and placed it on the front desk. Officer Price and Sergeant Keller are relieved of duty pending investigation, she said. Keller looked at her in disbelief. Captain. Turn in your access cards. He glanced toward Angela as though expecting her to enjoy the moment. She did not. Her face remained composed. This was not revenge. It was the beginning of accountability. Megan came around the desk carrying the printed verification warning and the yellow note. With Reed's number. These are the records from the portal, she said. The first search was at 5:01. The warning appeared before the identification card was placed into evidence. The investigator accepted them. Did anyone instruct you not to call? Megan looked at Keller. I was told the sergeant was handling verification. And was he? No, Keller stared at the floor. Angela watched Megan struggle with the next words. There have been other stops, Megan said. Not with military credentials. But people were brought in after addresses were confirmed, and reports were written before interviews ended. Bennett turned toward her. How many? I do not know. More than one. The lobby became quiet again, but this silence carried a different weight. It was not protecting authority. It was making space for truth. Angela stepped closer to Megan. Do you have access to those reports? Some of them. Preserve them. Do not remove anything. Do not alter anything. Let the investigators see the pattern exactly as it is. Megan nodded. Yes, General. Angela looked at the assembled officers. Some avoided her eyes. Others watched with expressions that mixed discomfort and recognition. This cannot end because one person happened to have a title, she said. If your procedures failed only when you thought I was powerless, then the problem is larger than this room. Reed gave a slight nod. Bennett's face tightened with shame. What do you require from the department? She asked. A full review of detentions involving disputed identity, residential access, and disabled body cameras for the past 3 years. Protection for anyone who reports altered records. Mandatory external verification when federal credentials are involved. And civilian oversight for complaints involving racial bias. Bennett listened without interruption. I will request all 4. Do not request them because I am a general, Angela said. Request them because the next person may not be. The front doors opened, and Evelyn entered beneath a military support officer's umbrella. Angela's expression softened for the first time that evening. She crossed the lobby and took her mother's hand. Evelyn looked past her at the officers, the investigators, and the secured evidence room. Did they finally listen? She asked. Angela looked back at Megan, then at the files being gathered from the desks. They are beginning to. 3 months later, morning light spread across the Veterans Center lobby as Angela held the door open for Evelyn. There was no military convoy outside, no dress uniform, and no polished insignia announcing her rank. Angela wore the same charcoal coat she had worn on the day of her detention. Evelyn moved carefully beside her with one hand on her cane and the other resting lightly on her daughter's arm. Near the entrance, a new notice had been mounted beneath the American flag. It explained that complaints involving racial bias, disputed identity, and disabled body cameras would now be reviewed by an independent civilian panel. The words were simple. The change behind them had not been. The investigation had uncovered 11 detentions in which addresses were confirmed only after people had been taken to the station. 7 reports had been altered after supervisors reviewed them. In 4 cases, body cameras had been turned off without a documented reason. Charges connected to those incidents were placed under formal review, and 3 people had already received written notice that their records would be corrected. Keller retired before the disciplinary hearing, but the investigation continued without him. Price was dismissed after investigators concluded that he had ignored available verification methods and provided an inaccurate account of the stop. Bennett remained captain only after accepting formal discipline, completing outside leadership training, and agreeing that future complaints would bypass her direct control. Megan testified fully. She had not been treated as a hero, and Angela believed that was right. Doing the correct thing late did not erase the earlier silence, but it could still prevent the next wrong decision. Megan now served as the station liaison to the Veterans Center, helping officers understand military credentials, disability needs, and the difference between suspicion and evidence. That morning, she stood near a table arranging informational folders. When she saw Angela and Evelyn, she straightened instinctively. Angela gave her a small nod. No salute was needed. The board approved the new review process last night, Megan said. Community members will have equal voting authority. Evelyn looked toward the notice. Will it last after everyone stops paying attention? Megan paused before answering. Only if we keep proving why it matters. Angela appreciated the honesty. Reform was not a ribbon-cutting ceremony. It was a habit that had to be practiced when no cameras were present and no powerful person was watching. A group of veterans entered behind them, filling the lobby with quiet conversation. One older man recognized Angela and began to raise his hand in salute. She gently stopped him with a smile. Not today, she said. Today I am here with my mother. Evelyn laughed softly and handed Angela the wooden box of medals they had tried to return months earlier. Together, they carried it toward the display room. Sunlight moved through the tall windows and settled across the polished floor. Outside, a patrol car passed the building at a steady speed. It did not slow. It did not turn into the parking lot. Angela watched it disappear beyond the trees, then opened the inner door for Evelyn. The lesson had never been that important people deserve better treatment. It was that dignity should not depend on a title, a uniform, a telephone call, or someone powerful arriving to confirm that a person matters. Real authority does not reveal itself through fear. It appears in restraint, accountability, and the willingness to correct a wrong even when doing so is uncomfortable. Angela had been saluted because of her rank, but the station had changed because she refused to let that salute become the end of the story. As Evelyn stepped into the bright hallway, Angela followed and allowed the door to close quietly behind them. If the officers had never learned that she was a general, do you believe they would have listened to her truth, and what does your answer say about the way respect is given in America?